In order to understand the incredible genius of Bach's The Art of Fugue, we should start at the very beginning. Well, not at the very beginning, but with what a fugue even is. A fugue explores the musical potential of a simple idea. It's sort of like being on Chopped. They only give you a passion fruit and a can of coconut milk, and somehow you have to turn these ingredients into a 3-course meal. The ability Bach had to take the simplest of musical ideas, an idea that in all honesty may sound unpromising, and turn it into a masterpiece of human expression is truly something to celebrate. Let's look at 3 more characteristics of a fugue. A fugue is not so much a musical form as it is a process for writing a piece of music. A fugue always starts with a simple theme, and then we layer voices with that theme in a particular way. That particular way includes what we call imitation. So if I start singing, you're going to at some point repeat after me with exactly what I just sang, and it's going to fit with what I continue to sing. Horizontally or melodically, each line of a fugue is independent, so it could stand alone. However, when the voices sound together, they create harmony, which is just the combination of simultaneously sounded musical notes to produce chords. If you think about most music, you have a main melody and harmony that accompanies that melody. Usually, that harmonic material is pretty basic, but a fugue is like a bunch of melodies played on top of each other that somehow miraculously also create their own harmony. It's practically a musical miracle, and we call this counterpoint. And we can describe a work that uses this technique as contrapuntal. That's going to be important in a minute. Now, let's get back to The Art of Fugue. The Art of Fugue was meant to demonstrate all the possibilities of contrapuntal writing which had accompanied Bach since his youth. Far more than a collection of exercises, it's more like an unfolding musical narrative. There are a few very popular factoids about this piece, like the fact that it is unfinished due to Bach's death and that it was written for an unspecified instrument. Some sources claim that as for the unfinished final fugue, it is much more plausible to think that Bach had indeed completed it, but that the last bars are missing from the only manuscript we have. Others speculate that Bach may have deliberately left the final movement incomplete, perhaps to invite a performer's own creativity. And as for not specifying an instrument, we do know Bach was a keyboard player, so it's likely safe to assume this was written for a keyboard instrument. However, many different instruments and ensembles play the piece today, including saxophone ensembles. Okay, enough factoids. Let's get to the simple idea, the simple melody that The Art of Fugue is based on. Here it is in all of its glory. So as you can hear, it's nothing particularly fancy. However, Bach is going to work his magic and turn that melody into something fierce with the 14 fugues and 4 canons, another contrapuntal type of work, that follow. Generally, as we move through The Art of Fugue, the compositions increase in complexity. The Italian pianist Filippo Gorini sums up so many beautiful things about the work in this quote. I first met it in my conservatory years, and my first impressions upon playing 1 or 2 of the fugues was that, yes, there was mathematics and abstraction and all the complexity, but the amount of human expression, the beauty, and the amount of emotion you can get from playing and listening to this music is actually incredibly intense, probably more than any other Bach work I had played. So yes, it takes a lot of strategy, theoretical knowledge, and craft to compose a great fugue. And Bach was a master at this. However, what's arguably more impressive than theoretical mastery is the ability to use that mastery to express something about what it means to be human. Okay, now do yourself a favor and go listen to a recording of The Art of Fugue. You may now listen with new ears.